I'm Richard Moore. This is The Pathfinder, where you'll find conversations with faculty, administrators, policymakers, researchers, really anyone making a difference in the lives of students at community colleges. It's a partnership between the Texas Success Center and the Texas Community College Teachers Association. Today our guest is Tonie Badillo, who directs dual credit and early college high schools at El Paso Community College. EPCC was a pioneer in both dual credit and early college high schools, and Tonie has been involved since the very beginning. In our conversation, she talks about the history of these programs and what she sees as the key ingredients to their success. Here's Tonie Badillo. Tonie Badillo, thanks for being with us today. I'm here in El Paso and speaking with a bunch of your folks who are teaching in your dual credit program and the students who are in it. It was a good cross-section in the room. Why don't we start out just, what is this, the conference that you're doing today?
Thank you, Richard, and thank you for agreeing to be our keynote speaker. You did a fantastic job.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
So this is actually our fourth annual dual credit conference. We call it Building Bridges because that's exactly the purpose of this this conference, to bring everyone who is a stakeholder in dual credit in our region. Mm-hmm. So our participants are faculty, staff, and administrators from EPCC, from El Paso Community College, but also from the school districts in the region, from our private and parochial schools, charter schools. So we try to bring everybody together. So we have counselors, we have advisors, we have facilitators, teachers, professors.
You have students.
students.
I met a couple of students.
Yes.
That was great to have them here on a Saturday just to find out about all this.
Right. We had about 15 students who helped us as ambassadors and ushers to the different breakout sessions, but also they participated in the sessions as well.
Mm-hmm. And so what do they come away with? I mean, so you've got people who teach their classes or involved in whatever their role is.
Right.
Why do you think it matters for them to all gather and you know, what are you trying to communicate to them?
So I think it's important for all of us to be on the same page, and to understand that we're in this together. And dual credit is not just EPCC's responsibility or the principal's or the superintendent's responsibility. It's everyone's responsibility. So this is an opportunity for me in my current role to send certain specific message that I want everybody to hear, and also to point out certain challenges that we need to address in the year to come. Mm-hmm.
So speaking of you, how did you get into this? I mean, not many people grow up thinking, I hope someday to run a dual credit program. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Quite by chance. So I don't know if you know this about me, Richard, but I'm originally from Mexico City.
Really?
And I came to El Paso when I was 19, my second year of college, to learn English. And I was just going to be here for a little while to pick up some English. It turns out that I liked the city. I liked the university. I actually toured UTEP, and I really liked it, so I transferred here.
Oh, wow.
And switched from... you will relate to this, from anthropology, that was my degree in Mexico, to computer science.
Interesting.
And it was the early 80s. Unfortunately, we had a big devaluation of the Mexican peso around that time, and so I was not able to complete my degree. I had to go back to Mexico for some years. But life, presented an opportunity for me to come back in the late 80s, early 90s, and gave me the opportunity to continue my education. I completed a bachelor's in linguistics and continued with a master's in linguistics. And I joke with Dr. Diana Natalicio that we both pursued the same degree. I missed her for about one semester. She could have been my professor, but then, she moved on to administration at UTEP.
Small world.
Yeah, very small world. But, after I graduated, I had an opportunity to teach at El Paso Community College and UTEP. And a few years later, found myself with first a part-time as an adjunct at EPCC, later with a lectureship, and eventually a tenure track position. And the year was 2005 when my dean at the time approached me and said, Tonie, you might want to be interested in this project since you're tenure track and it would look good for your tenure packet. Would you like to be the faculty liaison for an early college high school? And I said, what is an early college high school? And he said, I don't know. And I said, sure. And that's how my exposure to dual credit started back in 2005 when we started planning our very first early college high school here in El Paso, Mission Early College High School. So I was the original faculty liaison at the time. Later on, I became, when we opened more early colleges, I became the Early College High School Initiatives Coordinator. And eventually, I became the Dean of Math and Science for our Valle Verde campus, which is our largest campus. I did that for about 5 years. And that was, at the time, actually, my first exposure to dual credit in the comprehensive high schools. I was a liaison for 2 early colleges, Valle Verde Early College High School and Clint Early College Academy. But I also oversaw the math and science dual credit offerings at several high schools in the region.
Now, what was the impetus for this movement at the college? I mean, sometimes things come up for, there was a grant or something, and suddenly we find ourselves doing this. But did this come about just kind of by happenstance? Was there a real felt need that this was addressing? What got you all into this?
So I think, and here I have to rely on the stories that people tell, because I was not involved in this back in 1999 when our president, who was Dr. Richard Rhodes, who is now president of Austin Community College, he was interested in this developing option for high schools, of including college courses in high school. And again, we started, I think, in that year with about 90 students. And of course, progressively, it grew. But I think in 2005, it was the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation grant that kind of opened up this opportunity. The story tells that there was a meeting in Austin where, the call was for presidents of community colleges and superintendents to come and learn about this project. And at the time, Dr. Rhodes from EPCC and Dr. Duran from Socorro ISD back then were the only ones who showed up from El Paso. And, they started that conversation, and that's how Mission Early College was our first early college, because it was those 2 entities that were interested in this. Really perfect fit, I think, for El Paso because of our very high population of students who have not had the opportunity to go to college, with a poverty level that is relatively high compared to other cities in the state.
I was wondering about that. El Paso is a unique community. Well, every community is unique, but El Paso has a high first time in college, or among college students, a lot of them are the first generation.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people in El Paso don't go to college.
That's right.
So, how does given the demographics and the income distribution in El Paso, how does an early college high school fit with that? Does it create additional challenges to doing it? Are there benefits for the community? Talk about that.
So I think that, again, that was, I guess, one of the main reasons. And again, I shouldn't say that it was just our president alone, but Dr. Alicia from UTEP also has been a great advocate of the student population in a higher education institution looks like the community itself, right? And so with 85% Hispanic population, we needed to make sure that that would reflect it in the opportunities for higher education. So yeah, the fit seemed perfect, right? Because again, the mission of an early college is to assist students who wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to go to college, who need that additional support, who are not necessarily the top students in high school or in middle school, but who, given this specific sets of circumstances, they are able to succeed. And
so y'all don't skim the best students from the schools.
so it is even now less and less possible to do that, right? Because I don't know if you're aware of this, but TEA has a new early college high school blueprint that is now very prescriptive in terms of the target population for early college high schools. Many of our districts have a lottery system for selecting the students. We do have a very high, as I said, percentage of students who are first generation, who have free or reduced lunch, who are second language learners, who fit that profile of early college high school students.
How do you do that? I mean, I'm trying to think. It's like the whole world is trying to figure out how to improve outcomes for students, especially students that present additional challenges, either academic or life circumstances. And yet y'all seem to have figured a lot of that out. You're getting results that other places haven't been able to replicate. What do y'all do? What's the secret?
I think from the very beginning, we all agreed that the message to our students would be, if you commit to us, we commit to you. And so it is that safety net, that support system, those principals who know the name of every single student, those counselors who, in our early colleges, we have an EPCC counselor assigned to an early college, and of course, an early college high school counselor. Those two work together to look at every single student's degree plan, to sit down with them and map out their future, right? Whatever they're interested in doing, and to assist them when there's a challenge. So I think, again, we don't have 100% graduation rate. We don't have all of our students graduating with an associate's. We have a high percentage, 74.2% graduation rate. But those students who do not complete an associate's, they have 30, 45, 50 credit hours. So they're very, very close. And so one of my goals and my team's goals is to make sure that we support those students. So the fact that they did not complete an associate's before graduating from high school doesn't mean that they were not incredibly successful and they did not do something extraordinary.
And they're way ahead of most students.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we are very focused on identifying those students early on and then sitting down with them and planning their next semester, helping them with their FAFSA application, with scholarships. We just got a scholarship from Wells Fargo through our EPCC Foundation to target specifically those students and give them additional support if they need it.
And you track their progress as well?
Yes.
And how does that work for them?
It works quite well. Again, this was going to be the first year that we have our scholarship. We have not been as focused on those students until recently. So I guess in our next chat, I might have more information about them and see what happens.
So a lot of this it sounds like happens at the granular level. A student is struggling and you step in early with the right person to connect with, to help move them forward. How do you build a system with that kind of sensitivity where you know now's the time the student really needs to have a conversation?
So I mentioned to you earlier that when we opened our fourth early college, it was clear that we needed to have a system-wide process instead of having individual early colleges working with different campuses and different deans. And that's when the position of an early college high school initiatives coordinator came about, and when we held our first early college high school leadership council meeting, bringing the high schools, the college folks around the table and talking about those common goals and those common challenges, regardless of the school district. We invited our friends from UTEP. At the time, we invited our friends from Educate Texas, back then, Texas High School Project, that were supporting us too. So we had really interesting and very valuable discussions at that time. This was probably 2007, 2008. And since the structure, this is a living organism, so we keep on adjusting. And very quickly we learned that we needed to have a district-wide early college high school counseling coordinator, somebody who would be able to work with the counselors, both EPCC and at the high schools, and have a consistent message for them as well. And eventually, my role, so I was the Dean of Math and Science for 5 years, and then our president and vice president identified the need to centralize instruction for dual credit. So my position became available. So now the office of the Dean of Dual Credit Early College High School became open, and I threw my hat in because I figured I may have more experience than other folks doing this, so I wasn't absolutely sure what that office would look like, but it was an interesting challenge to bring all of that together. So that was last summer 2016.
So you knew a lot of the people at that point. You knew kind of the people at the high schools, the ISDs, throughout the college, and the people at UTEP that all needed to be working together. So your learning curve was probably less than it might have been.
Still kind of steep because I was more used to early college, and now seeing the whole world of dual credit was also a revelation of things. And so our goal is, how can we make our comprehensive high schools look more like the early colleges, have those support systems, have the same structure. So for example, this last semester we had our first, so we would have these workshops for counselors for the early college high schools, both EPCC and the high schools, come together every semester and have conversations about degree planning, about challenges and some information that everybody needs to learn. Well, this semester is the first time that we invited all the counselors of all the comprehensive high schools and administrators to come and listen to the same information and participate.
Doesn't it seem like the counseling piece is probably the hardest to get right, but also in many ways the most important?
So crucial.
What do you see there?
Challenges, that's on my list of challenges for sure. I have my list of things that we do well, and then I have my list of things that are challenges, and counseling, of course.
Well, when that shifts over to the list you do well, you need to write a book.
Oh my goodness. Again, lessons learned from early college. Comprehensive high schools work differently. Students have, first of all, the volume, right? So you have, instead of a cohort of 125, right? You have a cohort of 500, 600. So in terms of just sheer numbers, it's difficult to manage and to guide students properly. It is easier, I think, to think of a cookie cutter option. So everybody takes English, everybody takes history, which, there are certain courses that are pretty safe for everyone to take. But eventually we want students to, take those courses that really will apply to, and we've heard it obviously from you and from many people, right? We want courses that transfer, but more importantly, we want courses that apply to their degree plan. And so that, in there lies the challenge.
How does that work for a counselor? Because The struggle I can imagine for a counselor is kind of twofold. One is just the volume of students, and the ratio is just impossible. And then the other is they have to be an expert in every discipline, and no one, and both of those things are constantly changing. How do y'all? Are there ways to leverage their time? Is it simply a matter of you need more of them? What do you? I mean, that seems like an enormous bottleneck right there.
Right. And so an advantage that we have now, again, bringing everybody together to listen to the same messages, focusing on some really important concepts. And so understanding the college core curriculum. Mm-hmm. So you'd be surprised when we talk about core curriculum, the high school counselors are thinking about one thing, and our EPCC counselors are thinking about something else. Uh-huh. So how do we bring those together, and how do we understand that just because a course is in the core, it doesn't necessarily mean that every course in the core can be offered for dual credit, because we only need 3 credit hours, not 9 or not 12, right? Mm-hmm. And so that has been an interesting process for educating our partners in what that means. What is core curriculum? How many credits really are relevant? And the core may look very different for somebody pursuing a STEM degree from a liberal arts degree. Mm-hmm. It's a slow-moving process. Also, I think it happens in any organization, but we have quite a bit of turnover. Every year, we have to update our contact list, and we have new counselors at high schools. Mm-hmm. So we were working really well with one person that was fully trained and understood the process, and now we have somebody who has never done it before. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so this is a constant, and we cannot assume that because we talked about it, it's happening. So it is a constant tweaking of oversight, communication, education coming together, flagging certain things, educating the administrators, right? The principals, assistant principals, as to why it doesn't make any sense to offer both British Lits as dual credit, for example.
Stick around for more of our interview with Tonie Badillo. But first, let's find out about some upcoming events for our community college folks in Texas. Be sure to make your plans to attend this year's TCCTA convention up in the Dallas area. This is the largest gathering of community college folks in Texas, and there will be lots of programs covering more than 50 disciplines, as well as teaching hacks and time to meet up with friends across the state who share your passion for teaching. Visit tccta.org for all the program and travel information. And for teachers at community colleges, TCCTA has announced dates for its 2018 Great Teaching Roundup. This Master Teacher Seminar offers faculty in every discipline an opportunity to engage with colleagues, to share their successes and challenges, and connect their gifts with their calling to teach. We'll be in Kerrville, Texas this year, May 21 to 24. For more information, email Katie Agnew at kagnew@tccta.org. Hope you can be with us for that. Now let's get back to the conversation. What about the way you deliver dual credit? You've got faculty at El Paso Community College. You've got high school teachers who are credentialed and teaching a dual credit course. You have students taking it on the college campus, at the high school, online. I guess first, just for a sense of perspective, how much of each of those things are y'all doing? Is it mostly happening in one place versus another?
We do all of the above, except perhaps the one that we don't do very much, but we are hoping to find a logical way to ramp up is having students, high school students, coming onto a college campus to take college courses for dual credit, and not be part of an early college, because we have that system for early college, but not for comprehensive high schools because of the volume. Again, we need to be very, very careful not to turn our campus into another high school, because that's not the experience that the students would benefit from.
Right.
So we do online We offer the courses online, and we have a system where we have a facilitator at the high school, and they work very closely with the instructor of record. We host a workshop every beginning of the semester so that they have an opportunity to meet, to communicate, and to understand how they want to work together. Some instructors like very little support. Some instructors want a lot of support. And so they have to establish that relationship. We also, those are mostly in our social sciences, history, English, government, economics. Then we have our embedded faculty or faculty teachers who have been credentialed by us. And that was one of the numbers that I share with the group today. How many teachers do you think we have that have been credentialed to teach college courses in a high school? And I actually gave them a little game. So I said, do you think is 25, 50, 100, 200?
And are you asking me?
Yes.
I would say more than 100.
200.
Really?
We currently have 200 teachers that have been credentialed by us to teach college courses in high school. And
those are mostly the academic courses? Yeah.
Yes, mostly academic. We do have some career and technical, but mostly academic.
Okay.
And the increase, particularly in the academic area, was really in partnership with UTEP, because UTEP identified, and Region 19 really, our collaborative was crucial in spearheading that effort. So we can only do so much in terms of dual credit. How can we expand? And really, the only way to expand was to identify teachers who already had the credentials and could be credentialed by us, or those who were interested in continuing their education and taking some graduate courses at UTEP. So UTEP has been very flexible in providing some of those courses at times that teachers can take them in areas of demand. And so we have seen that increase. And
so for those embedded high school teachers, how do you reach them? I mean, because if you're going to run a thoroughgoing program, you've got to communicate directly with people who I can imagine are hard to reach sometimes. How do you do that?
Right. So what we've started doing, and again, we're trying to listen to what people tell us and then act accordingly. So we had our new faculty orientation, usually the week before classes start, during our faculty development week, and we would host a new faculty orientation specifically for dual credit teachers. But what I heard loud and clear very quickly was, well, it's kind of late because I'm starting next week. And so all of this information that you're giving me, I wish I had it earlier. So this last summer, we had our first new dual credit faculty summer convening. And so all of those teachers who were in the process of being credentialed, we brought them together for a day where they had general information about what they were about to sign up for. Some rules of, what is a college course? What are the things that you normally do in your high school course that you cannot do in your college course? Understand, and we had breakout sessions with their discipline. So they had an opportunity to, have a conversation and learn from the discipline coordinators for that area and learn about the challenges of teaching that course, how to build a syllabus, what was a textbook that they were going to be using, with enough time for them to prepare and to continue that mentor-mentee relationship for the rest of the summer and into the next semester. So we're hoping to hear that was successful because, again, we just did it in the summer, and this is the first semester that we're hoping to hear good things from our coordinators and our deans.
And do they receive professional development throughout the year?
Of course.
How does that work?
And so the same opportunity, and you mentioned that today, so the same opportunities that our adjuncts and our faculty members have is the same thing that our dual credit faculty have as well. And so different disciplines, if they have continuous opportunities for development, every faculty member is included, including dual credit. Our structure is depending of the geographical location of that high school. The closest EPCC campus is the one that oversees that high school. And so the dean for that area and the coordinator, faculty coordinator for that area are in direct contact with that faculty member. And so if there's any meeting or workshop that that person needs to attend, that's how they communicate. The coordinators would visit, of course, the very first semester they teach for a classroom evaluation and a follow-up conversation with the instructor.
And what about your communications with principals? Because they're an important ingredient in all of this. And what role do you see them playing in a dual credit program? And how do you kind of enlist them and engage them in the process?
So, of course, events like today, we had several principals. We have quite a few assistant principals because in the large high schools here in town, it is an assistant principal who is the one responsible for dual credit. Okay. We do reach out to them again for different events. So we have during the fall our conference. In the spring we hold a dual credit forum, where the format is a little different. It's usually after work, 4:30 to 7 o'clock, and we may present an important topic, but then we usually have a panel. And while we do the introduction, we pass out cards where they can ask questions. And so we have the panel. So it could be an IT person, a registration person, a counseling person, a Center for Students with Disabilities persons who can answer the right question that is a burning question for that teacher, that counselor, that assistant principal, that whoever comes to our forum. We do now, with my office now in place and with clerical support, which is very wonderful. So we have built, of course, now our lists. So when we have information to share with our partners, now we know we can send it to our principals, to assistant principals, to the counselors, to the facilitators, to the teachers.
Do you have all this written down? I guess I'm wondering if, let's say you got a new assistant principal who's in charge of this, and they came from far away, so they don't know anything about this. They show up one day, and how do they know how you do this? How decisions get made? Who does that teacher report to? Do you have those things in a form that you share with them?
Right. So here's the interesting challenge. As I share with you, up until May of 2016, my life was math and science, and I was working in that area. And
were those happier times?
They were different times. I love math and science. And I only had 2 early colleges, and I had a few high schools. Now that I have the world, then I see things differently. So at the time, we have always had a dual credit handbook. So when I came on board, and I actually reviewed that handbook, I realized that it was outdated. Things had changed, and that handbook had not been updated. So we do have an institutional dual credit instructional committee. And so we brought that to that committee for updates. And we are in the process of, and something that we decided to do was, well, this handbook really, what is the audience of this handbook? Well, we have different stakeholders. So we are developing a section that is geared towards parents and students, another one for counselors, another one for administrators. And so there might be a little overlap, but the message is a little bit different because it's geared towards a different audience. So we should have that finalized this semester. We are trying to roll it out in sections because I think if we wait for perfection, then it never happens, right? So we're going to roll it out in sections as we complete it. In addition to that, as I said, we have turnover. We have new principals. We have new assistant principals. And so very quickly I realized, well, there's certain pieces that these people need to know right away. And so we put together a kind of like a training. It's a presentation, but we usually, since we do it one-on-one, we bring it as a document that has certain topics that are important for administrators to know. One, that dual credit is a choice. So if a student chooses to take a college course for high school credit, they're signing up for something. And so they have to understand how that course is different from their high school course. And that's something that parents need to understand. That's something that everyone needs to understand. Same thing for early college. Students apply to an early college. They're not, selected. We in one of our slides, we actually have kind of like the graphic of a puzzle, which has TA, the coordinating board, SACS, legislature, and basically saying we have to answer to all of these. And so, yes, you may be focusing on TEA, but we have to focus on SACS and coordinating board, and we all have to focus on the legislature. We give them a copy of our dual credit partnership agreement, of, if it is an early college, of our interlocal agreement, of our dual credit procedure, with important sections highlighted, and of course with the understanding that they're responsible to read the documents carefully, but we pull out the crucial areas. For example, grading. For example, a grade change or grade appeal. Syllabus. Who manages and who owns that syllabus. So it is probably, we deliver it in about an hour. It's a lot of information for new principals, but that's something that they can refer back to. In addition to that, UTEP, in partnership with EPCC, we secured a grant, Meadows Foundation grant, that had several pieces, but one of them was professional development. So you missed at the beginning of our session today, we actually showed a video of Dr. Nalicio and Dr. Serrata talking about dual credit and how it started in El Paso and really the philosophy behind and the reason why we do what we do. And so we have interviewed through this grant administrators, counselors, teachers, students, professors talking about dual credit. And we're going to package this in kind of a training videos for the specific audiences.
It seems like there's a lot of value in the front loading of the work that you've done, that you get this clarity from the beginning. This is how this works and how decisions are made and who's got what role. So there's less confusion later. Do you ever run into situations where people don't understand or they're doing something that isn't in keeping with the materials you've shared with them?
Absolutely, especially in cases where we have a school that has been doing dual credit for a long time. And we have teachers who have been doing it for a long time. And what we've learned about dual credit has changed through the years, and the way we approach it, and even the rules that guide it. And so I think that actually brand new teachers and brand new administrators is fabulous because we're starting from scratch. This is the information that you get. It is perhaps those folks that have been doing it for a long time that are more reticent to change because we have always done it this way. And so it does take additional conversation and an explanation of why we need to do it.
Now, talk about the students. You've got students from all kinds of different backgrounds taking dual credit. How do you? Well, I guess first of all, what do you want? I mean, you're getting these students into this program. What do you hope for them? Why would a public school kid in El Paso want to take a dual be in a dual credit program?
So again, I'm sure, as you know, we have different groups looking at dual credit from different perspectives. The state view, and then the regional view and the local view. And we have been looking at our students very carefully in this area. And we have the advantage of being isolated out here in far West Texas. And so, and having a great relationship with our four-year partner, UTEP. And so our institutional research departments work very closely together. And so we look at dual credit students, how they do locally at EPCC, how they do the first year they transfer to UTEP, and how they do beyond that. And so we have found that students who take dual credit are twice as likely to graduate from high school, complete an associate's degree, and transfer to a four-year institution and complete. So with those numbers, how can we not offer dual credit? And so it's a matter of making sure that quantity is not the goal, but quality. And we offer it for students who want it, need it, they understand what they're getting into, and then we maintain that high level of quality.
Do you find, I mean, if the legislature's opened it up to ninth graders can take dual credit, do you find students understand what this is, how this works, why they would do it? I mean, what is, do you find their understanding evolving as they go through dual credit?
So it's interesting that you say that, and we're running some numbers right now because, you know, we have a certain impression of something and anecdotal information, but, you know, numbers don't lie, right? And so we have found, I was expecting a tremendous growth because I said, you know, we're going to have all of these freshmen taking dual credit. That has not been the case. That has not been the case. So we have had a growth in dual credit because now we have more teachers who are delivering college courses in high school, but not because we have more freshmen and sophomore taking dual credit.
So the capacity is what grows.
Right. Because even now, when I talk to the different schools, I ask them that question. So are you offering this to your freshmen and your sophomores? No, because it doesn't match, right? We already have the system that matches the junior level English to English comp or whatever. And so it is more work perhaps to start figuring out how to advise and to schedule, right, different courses. Plus, again, capacity, they may not have a teacher. They would have to maybe request an online course, and I don't blame them. I don't think an online course is necessarily the best first course for a student to take in high school. So it is a valuable tool for our partners that are far away from one of our campuses. But so I don't think that the growth, so I'm waiting for data to support what I think it's happening.
But what is the student's perception? I mean, if I'm just trying to, you know, if you got in the head of an 11th grader, which is kind of a terrifying thought, but if you got in the head of an 11th grader signing up for dual credit, and they think, all right, I'm going to do this, do they know what they're getting themselves into? You say this is a college course, but they don't quite know what that means. Right. You know, where might this lead? I think I might major in this field versus that field. Right. There's a whole lot for them to absorb to really appreciate what this is.
So it's interesting that you say that because that's the same question that I've asked when in the last, not this last legislature, but the previous one, when they, I guess, House Bill, what was it?
House Bill 5
with the endorsements.
Yes, House Bill 5.
And so now in middle school, right? That they're approaching students with, you know, what path do you want to take? And of course, us embracing the Pathways Project of AACC's Pathways Project, kind of following along the same lines, but really understanding that, you know, for high school, these endorsements seem more career and technical education in many cases, whereas our maps are everything. And matching them is going to be, we're in the process of doing that. you said it. How does a ninth grader know exactly what they want to be when they grow up? So we try to provide a set of courses that are more likely to use in the future. So I think that most of our schools focus on English, government, history, that are part of the core of most degree plans. And we chat with high schools that want to explore a very specific, a different pathway, whether it's health occupations or recently one of our schools wanted to explore architecture. So let's sit down and have that conversation. And who are those students and how can we identify them that early on? What kind of experiences can we give them for them to say, yes, this is something that I would like to explore?
And when it's over, that you understand them well enough that they're going to get something of value from it.
Right.
And do you have faculty meet with faculty at the high schools?
Right. So again, we have opportunities throughout the year in our workshops and our faculty development events. We have some EPCC faculty who are incredibly dedicated. Many of them are members of our dual credit instructional committee. Some of them are kind of our team because they're the leads for dual credit. They help in scheduling courses, and so they work very, very closely with them. For SACS, we have a rotation of facilities assessments and library assessments, et cetera. So we have faculty who regularly go to the high schools to make sure that everything is working the way it's supposed to. And so those folks are establishing relationships with the faculty. Just today, I was chatting with one of our English coordinators, and I was asking, how are things going? He had concerns with one particular, but then he says, but my other classes are fantastic. My faculty says he's a champion, and there's another one coming. She's going to be credentialed soon, and I think she's going to do a fantastic job. So I hear it from our faculty, and that is very heartening, that they are working, they're mentoring them, they know who they are, they know their names, and they communicate with them regularly.
That seems to be the key. It comes down to people.
People, absolutely.
Yeah. And with the students, it is, yeah. And with the students too, that they feel personally connected to this. Do you get feedback from students? How do you factor their experience into your work?
So that is something that I miss a little bit now in this job because most of my time is spent dealing with adults, faculty and administrators, and I do get to hear from students once in a while, but we do continue having visitors from out of town and out of state who have heard about us and they want to learn about how we do particularly early college. And so when we schedule those learning tours, we make sure that we have student panels and our guests get to visit the schools and chat with the students. And of course, I'm always present, so I love to, that's my opportunity to hear from the students. Again, that's usually our early colleges, which, going back to who those students are, those are the students that need the most help. Our dual credit students in a comprehensive high school are, they've took the TSIA and they're good to go, right? Not the early college high school students. They may not be college ready, the first year even.
So you've been doing this a while, and you've got some experience. What surprised you? I mean, when you started doing this work, were there things you thought would be easy that weren't, or something you didn't even know wasn't even on your radar became essential?
I've been surprised from the beginning. I can tell you that with our first early college high school, again, my first exposure to this, the students were tested back then with the AccuPlacer the summer before their freshman year, right? When they were doing their summer bridge. I was surprised of how many tested college ready in reading and writing and in math. I didn't think that any of them would, right? Because they're 8th graders. Yeah. So that was my first surprise. I was not expecting that at all. Then, of course, interventions during the summer and throughout the next semester. And of course, a few years later, the first 23 students who graduated as juniors. graduated with an associate's degree as juniors. That's when we figured that we had to include UTEP in the conversation, because what are those students going to do as seniors in high school, and we have nothing else to give them, right? So that's where UTEP came on board and said, well, of course they can continue with us, right? And those conversations got started again, thanks to Yvette Savina, who is now at UTEP, but at the time was the assistant principal at Mission Early College, who figured out, wait a second, what am I going to do with these students that are graduating a year ahead of schedule? So that was a big surprise, right? That was a big surprise for all of us.
So I was talking the other day with Rex Peebles, and he raised an interesting question that dual credit kind of forces, which is the value and the meaning of high school. What is high school? What are the implications for high schools? I mean, do you see changes in the curriculum, or just the way we understand the purpose of high school now that dual credit is getting so large?
I'm going to answer your question, but I'm going to go back to one more thought on your previous question.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which is something else that surprised me. I was the Dean of Math and Science, and I was proud to meet every single teacher that would work in my division, because I needed to make sure that I knew who was working for me. So obviously full-time, but all my adjuncts, they had to sit down with me before I even credentialed them. So I had a potential adjunct come visit with me, and I would have the credential folder, and I would sit with a person and look at their application and transcripts and have a conversation. And I looked at the application, and the student had graduated from Mission Early College High School. And I looked at her. She was applying, of course, to be a biology professor. In other words, somebody with a master's degree in biological sciences. And I said, you're a Mission graduate? Yeah, I was in the second cohort. And I had a conversation with her, and that was exactly my conversation. What did you miss? Did you miss something? And she said, she's one of our faculty members now, she's a lecturer. And she said, some families have the luxury of exploring and having a full high school experience, perhaps. For my family, it was important to take advantage of this great opportunity to be the first person in my family to get a degree, to save a tremendous amount of money and not have that burden on my family. That is such a powerful message, right? Because we always see things from our perspective. Of course, it's our experience, right? So, yeah, it's great to have that full high school experience and to do band and cheerleading and yes, but if your priority is if you have that level of maturity, being that young, and knowing that you are going to impact what your younger siblings are going to be doing as well. So, yeah, very, very powerful. Now, one of my early colleges, and I want to say my because I was their liaison for a long time, by Verde Early College High School, who for the second time in a row is a blue ribbon school. Very, very proud of them. Principal Covey was adamant that he did not want students to graduate early, that we were rushing them enough, right, in 4 years, and making sure that they had all of those activities and prom and do community service and run track and do all of those things within, of course, the constraints of an early college, especially a standalone one. But again, the message got to him too. There are certain students who are there. They've already completed the course. Why not give them that opportunity as well? So one opportunity for the other, right?
I've talked with a lot of teachers about this question of ninth graders in dual credit, and almost none of them says categorically ninth graders should not be able to take dual credit. What they do say is that they are vanishingly rare, and when they do come along, you need to give them that opportunity, and they're going to wind up graduating from MIT in 2 years. They'll do great with it. So they don't want to rule it out entirely, but they do say you've got to be very careful who you would select for that.
And we cannot use the same standard for everyone, right? So no, early college is not for everyone. Dual credit might not be for everyone, right? So that's why I insist. It is a choice. It should be the student's choice because they're the ones who are going to do the work. It's great if they have the support from their family. We really want it to be their student's decision, not their families or their parents. But I have run into so many, and again, those learning tours are so interesting. We learn too. These students are 14 years old and are incredibly articulate, talking about their experience and their challenges and their favorite course and what they're going to be pursuing and what scholarships they're going to be applying to. It blows your mind.
The couple of students I met in there today were just brilliant. Yeah.
By the way, the students that we had today, we actually just sent an invitation, and so we had students from comprehensive high schools. We had some from early colleges. So we had a variety of students.
On a Saturday.
On a Saturday.
They're showing up.
On a Saturday, yeah.
So if you were going to be talking with people at a college that maybe are early on in this process, what would you tell them to look out for? Make sure you get this right in building either an early college, high school, or a dual credit program.
So something that I appreciate about early college is that it forces a year of planning. And so it really, before you even bring students, in the door, you have to sit down with your partners and you have to agree on some non-negotiables and, what is your responsibility, what is my responsibility. That's what those MOUs or those interlocal agreements are so important. That crosswalk, what are we going to offer freshmen, the fall of the freshman year, et cetera, and you work it out. We sometimes, because it started earlier, we didn't have that luxury with dual credit, so we're like they say, you build the plane while it's in flight. I mean, it's kind of like what we're doing. I wish, right? So for those people who have that luxury of not having any students down the pipeline, then that time for thoughtful conversations, very candid conversations of things that are difficult. Grading systems are very challenging. Cost of textbooks, very challenging. I mean, there's certain topics that have to be discussed that they're not comfortable.
Well, I think everybody's trying to figure this out in Texas right now, and some are maybe further down the road, like El Paso, because you all started early, and this was something that you saw an opportunity for your students. And Dr. Rhodes, sounds like, kind of initiated the development of this. But I appreciate this time to talk with you because I think we all need to learn from each other. Absolutely. And y'all's experience really has a lot of value for our members around the state.
Well, I've learned a lot, not only from you, but from the opportunities I've had to chat with the members of TCCTA, committee members, fellow committee members in the dual credit committee, and folks around the state. We all need to be humble enough to know that nobody does this perfectly. We can all learn from each other.
That's the goal. So, Tonie, there is one thing that we've been doing with a lot of the guests on this program, and that's asking them about books that they love. If you have 3, we try and narrow it to 3. Almost no one can, but we ask if you've got some books that you think our folks should especially read. It can be related to work and the things we've been talking about, or just some book you've always read and loved.
Well, I have my favorite book that I actually have with me, well, not right now, but at home, the exact same copy that I read when I was 15, and that was my most favorite book. And this was a challenge. It is 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. And this was a challenge because my sister, who is about 8 years older than me, said that she could never read that book because all of the characters had the same name and she couldn't figure them out. And I, being the youngest and the smart aleck, and of course I'm going to read this book. It was a challenge for me. I totally love that book. I have read it in my life at least 15 times.
Mm-hmm.
And when I learned English, I read an interview of Garcia Marquez where he talked about how the English translation of 100 Years of Solitude was so strong that he even felt that it made it even better.
Is that right?
So I, of course, had to read it in English, and I totally agree. It's such a great translation, too.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely 100 Years of Solitude, very near and dear to my heart. I guess work-related, I think anybody who has read Redesigning America's Community Colleges, that was an eye-opener, I think, for a lot of us who have been doing this. Of course, that's one that I would recommend.
Mm-hmm.
And I love audiobooks because I have a long commute.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have a lot of time to actually sit down and read a hard copy. So I borrow books from the local library. And when I want to feel good and enjoy a book, I go for two authors that I really like.
Okay.
And one of them is Kristen Hanna. Men probably don't even know who she is, but those female listeners will definitely like her. And Jodi Picoult, who is a lawyer and writes fabulous stories, very thoughtful stories.
Terrific.
Any books by those two ladies are fantastic.
All right. Well, we will put some links up on the website for this episode, so any listener who's interested can find them there. Tonie, thanks so much. This has been terrific.
Thank you, Richard.
That was Tonie Badillo. You've been listening to The Pathfinder. Be sure to join us next week. We'll be talking with Kelty Garby, who oversees the STEM Accelerator project at Educate Texas. Hope you can join us for that. If you like this show, tell a friend, subscribe, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, share one of our episodes on social media. You can visit tccta.org to listen to our shows or grab them in your favorite podcatcher or wherever you found this one. The creator of The Pathfinder is me, Richard Moore. Our producers are Carol Hawkins and Gabriel Zambrano. This has been a production of the Texas Success Center and the Texas Community College Teachers Association. We'll catch you next time on The Pathfinder.